Hey, somebody's got to flood the field. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by our friends at Tucker ATV, Highway 43 North in Jackson, Alabama. You know Tucker ATV carries every make and model of Polaris ATVs. They have the big Polaris side-by-sides and even the bigger Ranger Crew. Now, you have to see the showroom to believe this place, though. The taxidermy, the antique displays, along with the customer service porch. I love the porch with its porch swing, comfortable chairs, television, and free coffee. And that's just the start. Now, Shannon and Lisa Tucker treat customers like family, which is why folks from 14 states have done business with Tucker ATV. Visit the Tucker ATV Facebook page and read Lisa's articles. They're very funny. Or visit Shannon and Lisa in person. Tucker ATV, the small town business with the national reputation. Well, observations and answers are what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And today we have somebody who you are really gonna enjoy. And I've already given you a little bit of a hint as to what he does with the very first, hey, somebody's got to flood the field. But I have known this guy for like 30 years, I guess. It's been a long time. I've known him since he was a teenager. How about that? And now he's a big deal. So please welcome the CEO of the Confluence Group, Tag Robinson.
What's up, Andy?
How you doing, Tag?
Man, I'm great.
I love the fact that we're here right now and still nobody really kind of knows what you do. I mean, people in the outdoor industry probably are going, oh my gosh, it's Tag Robinson. But you and I met when you had just started with Mossy Oak.
At this point, it's been so many moons ago. You know, when you threw out that number of 30 years, I mean, I'm just awestruck by that. 30 years ago. But yeah, I think you're pretty close. 30 years.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been at Mossy Oak very long. And back then, I mean, we were just a nobody. New kids on the block, with big dreams and all those kinds of things. And bam, I mean, here we are. And to reflect over that journey, it's pretty incredible.
So how did you start with Mossy Oak, with Toxie and Bill? Now, for those of you who don't know, Mossy Oak is a major outdoor brand, and they are camouflage. They're everything, and it was started by a guy named Toxie Hayes in West Point, Mississippi, and you were like the fifth or sixth person that was hired, right?
Yeah, I can't actually remember the number, but it was, I tell people all the time, it was within a dozen employees
right.
of the company, and I have a deep appreciation of what that must have been like then, big dreams, great ideas.
Because now this is a multi-billion-dollar organization.
It is. Approximately a 36-year-old brand that's just had a massive amount of influence, in shaping the ideas that we have today about camouflage and et cetera, in the entire outdoor industry. So it's easy for me to say that as I reflect over the journey. But back then, it was just like the all-American dream.
Well, what was it like? How did you get started?
Well, and I know you know this, but it's an interesting piece of trivia. The roots actually come back to your backyard right here in this part of the world.
Right.
But Toxie was just a young man, like many people are, aspiring to work for himself, build a brand, have a business, all those kinds of things. And he was working at the time at Bryan Foods in West Point, Mississippi, who at that time was the largest employer in the Golden Triangle area.
Right.
And, but anyway, I was just a college kid. I'd been playing football, and football had kind of dried up. I had transferred from a little small junior college over to Mississippi State in Starkville. And I started hearing things, rumblings about this thing, Mossy Oak, and this guy, Toxie Hayes, and probably sometime in 1986. And in fact, he LLC'd the company in 1986. So I would have been a junior in high school at that time. Of course, I grew up hunting and fishing and loving the outdoors, and I was, a junior in college at that time, just trying to get to the finish line and get out in the real world. And at that point in time, I was studying criminal justice with the idea of being in law enforcement on some level, and all of a sudden here comes this guy. And of course, that was a different era back in 1996 than what we're accustomed to now.
86.
I'm sorry, 86.
Yeah.
86, thank you. It was a much different era. And, downtown West Point was robust and booming, and here comes this guy. He rents this little storefront downtown and converts it into an office and hires a few people and puts a few dollars together and makes big commitments on cutting and sewing clothes and getting them shipped into West Point, Mississippi, and developing a sales force and all those kinds of things. And real quick, cool short story. I was working odd jobs like most college kids did back then, and I had a job with Music Maker Productions, which was the promotional arm of Mississippi State University, and their job was to get the various acts and things.
Concerts at the university.
Yeah, and it was a Reba McEntire concert and a Clint Black concert. And just prior to that, I had the opportunity to go dove hunting with Toxie and a few people with the company, and that would have been September of 88. September of 88. And anyway, went hunting with them, had a great time. So fast forward to the following year, I believe it would. Yeah. Anyway, I'm working this show. I'm kind of on the front row working security for this concert, and in the midst of the interim between Clint Black and Reba, I noticed Toxie and his family sitting in the second or third row. So I just go over, reintroduce myself, and that kind of thing. And right before Reba came on the stage, he walks up to me and says, "Hey, do you think you could do me a favor and get me backstage to see Reba?" Well, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. But lo and behold, I went and tugged on somebody's shirt tail, and
you're just a college student, just working
a college
the show.
kid holding down a job, didn't have a clue, but it all worked out. Toxie and his family got backstage, met Reba. He was a huge fan, and he came back out and he was thanking me, and he said, "Anything I can ever do for you, let me know." I said, "Well, give me a job." And the rest is history. The rest is history. And I went to work for him part-time, turned into a full-time job, and it was just an incredible journey. Can't thank those people enough for what they did for me.
I went in that little storefront there, and it was around when Toxie and Bill got together. Bill was his brother-in-law, and was vice president of the bank, and so he's going to be the money guy, but how did it happen? What was the key to Mossy Oak's success, do you think?
Well, I think it was a lot of factors, but the thing that impresses me the most about it all, and this is just coming from an opinion of one that spent a lot of time in the trenches, is Toxie was a marketing guy. It was his company. And it was his brand, and he sat, in the big seat. And all the key decisions that he was making along the way was in the best interest of the brand. And again, I'll highlight this again, it was a different era back then. And the vast majority of the merchandise being purchased and consumed out there was going through a very vibrant and healthy dealer independent dealer network. So we had success building those relationships.
Stores.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the big box footprint, if you will, the mass merchants hadn't really kind of come onto the scene. But it was just baptism by fire, so to speak, and having a real conviction and what his vision for the brand was supposed to be. And if he was sitting here today, I think he would echo everything I'm telling you. You know, it was just, there is no book, there is no tutorial, you know, that you go. One of his favorite quotes is he never would take no for an answer, and that's how he got to developing his camo pattern. And it was so much more than just a camo pattern at the time. It was the colors and the way he designed the camo pattern, and it was the story he had to tell. You know, it was all about getting connected and in tune with nature and all those kinds of things. And it was such a foreign approach to developing camouflage and products. And that's kind of where that determination that he still has today, really, he relied on that then, because he wouldn't take no for an answer. And in one hand, he couldn't afford to do everything he wanted to do, but he was just chipping away and had some success and tapped into something that really resonated with the consumer market. You know, so he was able to develop a demand early that he had some success with.
Yeah, you know, really until Toxie and Bill Jordan,
Right.
Everybody was wearing that kind of spotted camo that my dad wore,
Right.
right? And then
Absolutely.
Then Toxie came out. Was Bottomland the first?
No, actually, there was a pattern called Hill Country.
Okay.
And the difference between Hill Country and Bottomland was just the color schemes.
Okay.
It was basically the same format.
Bottomland was that brown and black.
Same
Hill
shape,
Country must have
elliptical
been
shapes,
green.
and all that kind of stuff. Hill Country had a gray and a different shade of brown.
Okay.
But it really never did see the light of day. And I guess in hindsight, that was kind of the guinea pig. But he altered that color scheme and came up with, you know, the name Bottomland. And it's currently still one of the most popular patterns out there.
Yeah. I mean,
Unbelievable.
and it's so neat that a lot of people, I mean, that's Austin's favorite.
Sure.
You know, and then, you know, but people my age kind of see it as retro. And it's like that. But it's one of my favorite entrepreneurial stories. You know, $1 billion company that was started with a guy and a piece of white paper and 2 magic markers sitting beside a tree doing this, you know.
You know, he gave me, he didn't intend it for advice at the time, I don't think, but I took it as advice. And I asked him a very poignant question one day. And the question was, the summary of the question was, well, how have you been able to manage all of this growth and manage the roller coaster ride of running a company? And he kind of leaned back in his chair and did the signature thought process that he has with putting his hands under his armpits. And he said, you know, I guess I've always just tried to stay attached to my intentions rather than being so results oriented. And I tell you what, that just really hit home to me. And I tell that story a lot to people who have ideas or ambitions or willing to share their ideas and ambitions. What are your intentions? You know, really kind of frame up your intentions and stay attached to them.
That fosters your persistence.
Absolutely. Just like, you know, in The Traveler's Gift, you know, which was a great book, had a major impact on me. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And so those values really resonate with me. And, you know, so it's just those little things make such a big difference as you're plowing ground, you know, and trailblazing and reaching for the stars and all those kinds of things.
So what was the highlight of your time there? Because I know, I mean, every time you and I would talk, you're doing something else. I mean, you're doing some different job. You're in some different division. And so what was a highlight for you there?
That's a hard thing to put my finger on. There's so many, you know, and looking back, I could write a book on it.
I know you were producing the television
we produced
shows.
a lot of television, and in fact, TV had a major impact. I mean, if you really had to boil it down to say one thing, I think those guys would tell you today that television made all the difference in the world back in the, you know, early to mid 90s.
Right.
You know, again, it was a different era.
It was. You know, when Traveler's Gift came out and Robin Roberts talked about it on Good Morning America, that was it.
There you go.
But now there's not a television show that's it.
So to draw on that, back then it was and you know this well, TNN, the good old
Right.
Nashville network.
Yep.
They were kind of the only game in town for a national platform for hunting and fishing programming. And you had a Saturday night block and you had a Sunday night block that was dedicated to outdoor programming. And Toxie made the decision to get on TV. And he did, and it was a huge success and a lot of risk, but also a lot of reward. And that was really kind of the springboard, I think, that put us in the stratosphere as a brand and as a company. And back then, you know, from an entertainment standpoint, information consumptive standpoint, that was the only game in town. So it really worked out well for us.
And I remember you guys had like big people on that show. I mean, like I remember you with Jack Nicklaus.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean,
but you ask about highlights. For me, just on a very personal level, it's the people you meet along the way, and most of them are people you've never heard of.
all right,
You know,
right?
A few are people you have heard of, but people's love for the outdoors have always meant a lot to me. And to see people live out their passion through the effort and the time, the energy that they put into having success in the outdoors and the way they try to reinvest and pass it along, and to watch that conservation spirit develop in people,
Right.
you know, whether it's hunting or fishing or whatever the case may be, that's probably been the highlight of my career, is just being associated with a memory that somebody has on some small level,
Right.
to something that means so much to them. That's rewarding.
You know, one of my great friends and is a friend of this show is Grant Woods.
Right.
And I told Grant that I'd done some stuff with you, and he was so happy to hear that you were doing good. Oh, I love TAC, and so that's just awesome, because you know Grant's
Right.
a big deal
Right.
now.
Absolutely. So I have a question for you, not to put you on the spot, but you've had a lot of success, and you
It's
love
been a long climb to the middle for
Sure,
me.
sure. I understand what that must feel like, but I have a heart for the way you've raised your children, you know, and what the outdoors means to you. How would you sum that up, you know, with that being an intrinsic value in your life, without that being in your life? I mean,
Well, without that being in my life, they aren't the same kids. You know, I hear people talk about whether it's quality time or quantity time, and it's both. And it's a quantity of time that has quality in it. And I got to say, I've said this before on this show, so it's no surprise to anybody, but I think that hunting does something between a father and the kids, or the mom and the kids, or between the husband and the wife. Hunting does something that no other sport, including fishing, does. And it provides something necessary for growth, and that is quiet. You know, I mean, you know, I would go fishing with my dad, and we didn't have a boat, and so he would be on one side of the pond and I'd be on the other side of the pond. We were spending time together, but wasn't a lot of talking going on. And then when we did get a boat, you know, he was at one end of the boat, I'm at the other end of the boat, and we're moving all the time, we're casting, we're small talking. But when I would go hunting with my daddy, and I'm snuggled up under him, and Daddy's talking to me like that, and you know, gotta be still, be quiet. And I remember, you know, Bill Sugg, who is like one of your father figures.
Absolutely.
You know, Bill is the second in command, I guess,
Right.
at Mossy Oak. And I never will forget one time when Bill took me and the boys out there in West Point, where he was putting us out somewhere, and had this little, like, it was blind before there were blinds everywhere, and the boys got out of the car, and they were talking in full voice when we got out, and Bill said, hey, come here just a second. They came over, and he said, you know how your mama doesn't like you to talk loud in the house? He said, well, this is the animal's house. And he said, and so we always respect them and we're quiet. Well, to have Austin and Adam sitting with me for many years before they got to sit by themselves, and you're there for a couple of hours or 3 hours or an hour, and there's no games. There's you're not on your phone. You're just watching the woods and you being quiet. But a parent and the child can whisper and they can talk. And there were some very serious conversations that took place during that time with my boys. I remember Adam, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, and asked me one time, he said, Dad, what is abortion? And I was like, what? But I if he'd asked me that at home, I'd have probably said, well, wait, hang on, let me get your mother,
Right.
I'll get right back to you on that. Where'd you hear? But he was very patient. He knew I wasn't going anywhere. And so I had time to think about it. And my explanation that day, it set his track. I mean, it's the same, I just explained it. And there I hear people say that, I don't let my kid watch TV and stuff like that. And I understand why people do that, but I also kind of feel like, I've had people say, oh, we don't let our child watch TV. And I want to say, yeah, I know, because when they come to my house, I can't get them away from it, Right. And so I think, do you really think that your child is going to grow up and leave home at 18 or 19 and they're never going to hear those words? They're never going to hear those terms. And so do you want some kid at school explaining it to them? Because those opportunities can come up when the word is said because we can't get away from it now. There's even if you say we only watch ball games, well, there's commercials, and there's words in commercials, and there's
right.
And so I think it's quality and quantity and quiet.
I get a big kick out of watching my children, and of course now my kids are much older. My oldest son is 25, my middle son is 21 now, and of course my baby boy is 18, and they've been exposed to everything outdoors, but I get a kick out of watching, I guess, the depth of appreciation they have at relatively a young age,
right?
And to hear them explain it to other people,
right?
I'm blown away at their maturity level.
Right.
In the depth that they have at such a young age, and I wouldn't take nothing for that.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from, because I when Austin started sitting by himself in the woods, and it was just Adam and me at that point instead of me with two boys. And I thought, well, gosh, that time is gone, to teach Austin and all. But I understand now that there was a different kind of teaching going on, because I was able to just say a couple of things. But as he was sitting quietly by himself in the woods, he had time to think it through. and you got time to pray. And, I realized a number of years ago that I had answers come to me at 3, things I was trying to work out, business questions or the plot in a book. And I would have these answers come to me at 3 basic times. Once, right when I woke up, one time, another time is in the shower, and the other time was in the woods. And I realized those are the only times I'm quiet. I mean, and so, I've heard hunters say all my life, I feel closer. I feel like I can hear God better in the woods than I can anywhere else. And I sometimes I feel like God's saying, I bet you do. That's the only time you shut up. It's the only time I can say anything.
Well, just as a father and as somebody that's been in the business, that's the thing that I guess I really take away now is I just know that it's had a major impact on helping shape some values that are instilled in my children that I have a lot of confidence in.
Right.
And
I'm not. So when I'm saying hunting, you know what I'm meaning.
Sure.
When I'm saying
sure.
hunting, I ain't saying you got to kill anything. I mean, go hunting with your camera. Go hunting by yourself.
It's such a misunderstood topic, to people that don't do it. And I can't stress this enough. And just remove your ideas of hunting, what that may mean to you. But if you'll take time to put the effort in to get outside and explore nature, expose yourself to it, it'll have just a tremendous impact on the way you, on what you think you know.
Right. That's what Jones said. Can't believe everything you think.
There you go. So same holds true with outdoor activities. So I wouldn't take nothing for it, and have been fortunate to have spent a professional entire career in that space.
Well, now let me. You distracted me. Now you're not supposed to ask me questions. So let me get back to you here real quick as we close down. We still haven't told anybody what the Confluence Group is, and I gotta say, after years and years and years of knowing how many times you had the opportunity to go on your own, to take a new position with another company, to go out of that industry. I was kind of shocked a couple of years ago when I heard that you weren't with Toxie and Bill anymore. I mean, physically, I know you're still there mentally. And
Sure. Look, those guys, in a nutshell, I just have lots of love for that company and those people and that brand. I mean, they helped raise my children. But I was with them for 26 years and just had a job opportunity that came along that I couldn't really afford to pass on, that really kind of aligned. It was a good time, both personally and professionally for me, and I had been affiliated with it for almost a decade. So
name it.
So I went to work for an outfitting business down in Jonesville, Louisiana called Honey Break Lodge and Outfitters. And as I said, they were a client of mine within the role at that time that I had within the company. So I'd been affiliated with them for about a decade. And they presented an opportunity to go to work for them, and of course I did, and had been there for about a year. And it crystallized with me, maybe like your thoughts come to you in the shower or something, over the idea of creating the Confluence Group. And the Confluence Group is really just a marketing department of the mothership that owns Honey Break Lodge. But it just gave me an opportunity to assemble a team of people that had great skill sets, great hearts, great intuition and experience in the outdoors. And it was just a fancy name for doing things ourselves. So I was able to fall back on my experience in outdoor production and some relationships that I had made inside the endemic outdoor trade space. And when you pair or couple that with the talent and the budgets allocated to go put people together, it just gave me an opportunity to do some things that I had a lot of confidence in. And so that's what we did. So we put the company in Mississippi, LLC'd it in Mississippi, and hung our shingle out as a marketing firm and that kind of thing. And that was almost 6 years ago now.
Wow.
And we've just been able to capitalize on the success of Honey Break and expand our business a little bit.
Well, I know when you asked Austin and I and Adam, but Adam was in school, and but you asked us to come up and experience Honey Break, and Austin was out in Idaho at the time,
Right.
and so I hadn't gotten the date yet, but I had told Austin about you, but I had not mentioned Honey Break, and so I said, you know, Tack, my buddy Tack, I said he's in a different place now, and he's at like just a really like a great place, and it's over in somewhere in Louisiana. He said, Dad, it's not Honey Break, is it? I said, yeah, that is it. He said, that's the best place in America. And I said, really? And then, you know, Austin and I drove in from different places.
Yeah, to say the least.
And yeah, right. And he got there like an hour and a half before me. And
From Idaho.
From Idaho. And he called me and he said, Dad, this is incredible. I said, really? Well, you knew it was incredible, didn't you? And he said, I just didn't know this. He said, I didn't know this. He said, this is like pulling up at the Ritz-Carlton.
Well, it was a real treat for me to have you guys, and he's a fine young man. Fine young man. I really enjoyed getting to know him more, and yeah, that was awesome.
So explain, I know what a confluence is, but explain why you named your company that.
So I appreciate the question. I enjoyed telling my story. It was real important to me, and still is. I mean, it's got a lot of meaning to me. So the term confluence represents where two river systems come together. And it's not a common term that you hear in everyday vernacular, so to speak. You hear it a lot among the fly fishing community. Because the confluence of a stream or the confluence of a river as maybe a landmark or something like that. But in my mind, you associate the term confluence with major river systems like the Mississippi or, you know, the Red or the Little River, or, you know, even in South America, the Amazon, or so on. And those flood basins associated with these major river systems is such it's the lifeblood, you know, that sustains regions. And people have to have, you know, the heartbeat of that river, you know, in good, healthy shape to sustain themselves. You can go a long time without, you know, having to have something to eat. You can't go very long without having, you know, something to drink. You know, so that's how I kind of framed up the spirit or the intent of what we were trying to do with coming up with that name, the Confluence Group, is we're just in the helping business. You know, we've got a great home base established in Honey Break, but we're here to help. We can help and want to help, and we love sharing the outdoors with people. You know, we just do, and I just have this real passion about sharing our view of the way we see, you know, things through our lens with other people. And photography and things like that, well, photography specifically is just hugely important to me. I think it's as powerful as music when it comes to really connecting with people.
What I have seen that you've done, I mean, and where can people reach you? I mean, can they?
Well, we're pretty visible in social media. I mean, you can see us. It's the Confluence Group on Instagram. We have a Facebook page like everybody else does, but it's the www.dcgrivers.com, and you can kind of see our portfolio, and you can see a list of our clients, but you can see, you know, what our photographers, you know, see.
Yeah, I mean, those things that I've seen that you've done for Honey Break Lodge, oh my gosh.
Well, look, I can't take all the credit for that. Our people are just totally, I mean, they're off the charts talented.
They are.
Talented. You know, and with that type of facility, and I'll tell you a little bit about Honey Break real quick. So if you're a duck hunter, you know, these statistics will mean something to you. It's the largest WRP contract in North America, and WRP stands for Wetlands Reserve Project. So it's the largest contiguous wetlands reserve project in North America, which is just south of 13,000 acres now. Under normal good conditions, we'll shoot somewhere around 10,000 ducks a year. You know, we winter about 500,000 ducks a year. We're on the very south end of what was at one point the largest row cropping operation in the entire world back in the late 60s and early 70s. So as far as location and geography goes, I mean, duck hunters call it the X. You know, our facility and our property is on that X. You know, we're 13 miles east of the famed Catahoula Lake, you know, there in Louisiana that winters about 80% of the waterfowl in the entire Mississippi Flyway. So we're blessed to be able to have that spot, but that comes with just an unbelievable sense of responsibility, you know, and the work that goes into maintaining that habitat, keeping it just as good as it can possibly be. It takes a lot of effort and energy. So for us, in what we do, I refer to Honey Break as our studio, you know, and to be able to have that resource at our beck and call, you know, whenever we want it or need it, that's a real blessing.
Those pictures you have of dogs, those dogs and the videos of those dogs, golly.
So again, we love photography, and we work real hard to be pretty good at it. And that's the one thing that we try to really kind of hang our hat on with a high degree of confidence that we can stay really connected with that waterfowl demographic, you know, so.
Well, thank you for taking your time. We will put how to contact you on the show notes.
Thank you.
And I'm excited about getting to talk with you anytime and getting to talk with you in front of friends. I think this is even better.
Well, I'm honored I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you on the program and really appreciate our friendship.
Yep,
and
absolutely, man. You're a long time.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Decoys provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by virtualexercise.com. Are you tired of going to the gym? No time to jog or ride your bike? No problem. Just sign up and log into your account at virtualexercise.com and get fit fast. With a football helmet-style headgear and built-in plasma screen, you can run in the Amazon and bicycle the Alps, all from your recliner. Swim the Great Barrier Reef when you go to bed. You won't wake up wet, but you'll feel as though you've been swimming for hours. Also, check out our new program, Virtual Food. Lose weight and get fit, all from the comfort of your own home. That's virtualexercise.com, an experience no fitness center can beat.